Hey, good morning all. Hope my audio, video, and screen share are fine for all of you.
Visible, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. So, all right, let us get started. So, I would again request to keep your videos on, okay, and let us try to interact with each other. Like, if you are having any questions, just do stop me. So, in the last class, we had the opportunity to discuss about India-China relations, okay, and what exactly the India-China relations, how they started, okay, and we went ahead with a detailed background of geography, history, okay, and a little bit of like how the relations evolved post-independent India. Okay, that's what we tried to complete it in the last class. And for the interest of all, I'm just quickly running through the slides, what we discussed in the last class. Okay, this is about the geography or the physical map of China, the political map of China. Then the 70 years of diplomatic relations. Okay, after the diplomatic relations started, we discussed how India China started with Hindi Chini bye bye. Okay, but 1962 we had to say bye bye to China. Okay, because we had a war with China. Okay, it was completely unexpected, and many scholars say that it is a something like a diplomatic failure, intelligence failure, or political failure. Okay, but we need to also assess the ground conditions, because there has been a lot of unpredictability, okay, within the internal environment as well as the external environment. Okay, maybe if you would have analyzed something about the Korean War, something about the Vietnam, the challenge within the Vietnam. Okay, the challenges which were there between the China and the Soviet Union. Okay, then Soviet Union. You might really understand the dynamics of that. But ultimately, what happened was, it was a you can say a clear standoff for India. Okay, which was like a setback for a country like India, which was going ahead with regional integration. Okay, then we had to move towards China, and China needed to move towards India, and that too by the push of the major powers. Okay, at that point of time, it was US and Soviet Union. Okay, both the we discussed that was a phase of detente. Okay, during the phase of detente, both the US and Soviet Union wanted India and China to be together. Okay, it was like loveless arranged marriage. Okay, that's what we discussed, like where they were pushed into, okay, uh, uh, staying together. Okay, but there were a reluctance from both the parties. But however, post 1998, we can see that China has on the path of economic trajectory. Okay, China's economic growth would be humongous at that point of time, and India admired China for the economic growth. Okay, and as well the China is very much admired India because of the political, you can say, development which happened in India. Okay, despite all the troubles, like we try to keep up the democracy. Okay, so both inspired each other, but at the same time, both the parties are cautious of each other. Okay, these are the trend. What we are talking about is a trend of relations, and we started with the areas of conflict. Okay, and in areas of conflict, we discussed about the border disputes which are there between India and China. And related to border disputes, again, don't go into the border disputes without you can say creating the border. Okay, creating the boundary for your notes, what you need to prepare. Okay, how you need to prepare in the notes, it is for, we'll divide into western sector, into middle sector. Okay, here at Sikkim, where we are having a border, and at the eastern sector, and try to list out what are all the areas of conflict in the western sector. So we gave some names like Aksai Chin, like Shaksgam Valley, like Daulat Beg Goldi, okay, Tepsang Law, okay, and Galwan. Okay, all these are the flashpoints which are there between India and China, which are often disputed territories. Okay, and the Sikkim, the middle sector, which we expected it to be, you can say, it is almost the border conflicts have been resolved, but until the Doklam issue came up, okay, we were again surprised. Okay, even this border we cannot expect it to be completely resolved. At the same time, the eastern sector, often the China claims Arunachal, okay, sometimes fully, sometimes partially. Okay, so China has its own ambitions, okay, in the northeastern frontier agency, which was otherwise called during the British Raj. Okay, often it calls it as South Tibet. Often the China has the palm and five finger theory. Okay, this is what like a concern because the China's aggressiveness. Okay, China is often a very aggressive country when we are talking about claiming the territories. Okay, now this is what like we discussed in the last class. Any questions till now, or are we good? Okay, all right. Now just take a small assignment. Write a short note on. Write a short note on the following. Write a short note on the following. Okay, maybe 50 words, not more than that. Okay, if it is possible, if you can able to draw a small map and show it, it would be much better. LAC, line of actual control. Line of actual control. Johnson line. Johnson line. McDonald line. McDonald line. BDCA. BDCA. Okay, Border Defense Cooperation Agreement, BDCA. Okay, maybe how the questions can be formulated in your exam. Okay, though we are having BDCA, why there are, you can say, often the border disputes between India and China. Okay, or you might directly get in prelims. Okay, which of the following statements are correct? LAC divides these particular territories. Okay, you might in prelims match the following kind of questions you might get. Okay, because all these are the different border lines which are there between India and China. So I think with this, our border conflicts we can put to an end. Okay, and maybe from India's point of view, okay, maybe from India's point of view, China, we often say that China is an aggressive neighbor. In fact, I was watching a documentary, okay, of a Chinese official. Okay, so let me just put it this way. Okay, how China views India. Okay, because from India's perspective, we say that China is an aggressive neighbor. China is a country often fighting for territories, right? So that is how it is being projected. Okay, now how many countries with which India is having a border with? Land border with? How many countries? 7. Okay, 7 we discussed. Now, out of which, with how many countries we are having border conflicts? With
3.
all the countries except with Bhutan. Okay, except with Bhutan, we are having border disputes with all the countries in the neighborhood. Is it clear? Now, when you say China's border, China is the country which is having largest number of land neighbors. Okay, in fact, China is sharing borders with 14 countries. Okay, if you look at the map of China, what you realize is China is sharing the border with 14 countries. With how many countries it is having border conflicts with? Any idea? Only one. Okay, that is India. Hope you got the point. Okay, if you view from Chinese prism, okay, what China portrays that India is a warring country. Is it clear? Just like in Indian media, we often portray China to be an aggressive neighbor. Okay, now China always projects this statistic. China says that we are having 14 neighbors. Okay, starting from Russia to Korea to Mongolia. Okay, lot of countries we are having borders with. None of the countries we are having a border dispute. Okay, India is the only country with which we are having the border dispute. Whereas on the other hand, India is a quarreling neighbor. Is it clear? If you are able to convince a third party, okay, that China is an aggressive country, China is also able to convince that India is an aggressive country. Okay, this is how China portrays. Okay, China portrays India. So when you're writing your answer, okay, you should be more neutral in your approach. Okay, when you're writing your answer, you should be very much neutral. And as I told, there is a way of diplomatic way of writing it. Okay, even if it is a border dispute, you should not write like a someone on Facebook or WhatsApp. Okay, when you're writing your answer, you should be more and more logical enough. Okay, India claims, China claims. Okay, these are what the words which we should be often using in your exam. Okay, so because what I have seen is when you're writing the answers, most of the students get emotional, get passionate. Okay, but when you're writing your answer, you should be very much neutral, very much diplomatic in your way of writing it. Okay, because we are going to be administrator. Okay, all right, so we'll move to the next one. Okay, the next one is the water conflicts, water sharing issues between India and China. Okay, few points related to water sharing issues. The first most important thing what we need to understand here is the annexation of Tibet. The annexation of Tibet. Okay, you can write down Tibetan Plateau. Tibetan Plateau is often called as the Tibetan Plateau is often called as the third pole, put it in quotation marks, third pole okay, third pole, just like North Pole and South Pole. Okay, Tibetan Plateau is called third pole, or often it is called as the water tower of Asia. Water tower of Asia. Because of huge glacial expanses, because of huge glacial expanses and vast reserves of fresh water. And vast reserves of fresh water. It is a source of 7 largest rivers. 7 large rivers. Okay, you can write. First one, Indus. Indus. Ganges or Ganga. Brahmaputra. Irrawaddy. I-R-R-A-W-A-D-D-Y. Irrawaddy. Salween. S-A-L-W-E-E-N. Salween. Mekong and Yangtze. Mekong and Yangtze. Okay, and even Huanghe, you can see that it is very much starting from the Tibetan region, Tibetan Plateau. So, understood why Tibet is so important? Because it is a source of huge amounts of, you can say, huge reserves of fresh water. Okay, in the whole of South Asia, Southeast Asia, East Asia. Okay, if you are seeing from different perspectives, it is having a huge amount of fresh water. Now, this is where strategically Tibet became so important for China. Okay, why China invaded Tibet? One of the reasons is it's because of its geographical features. Because once you control Tibet, you can be able to control the water in the whole of the region. And China often uses these waters for arm twisting the lower riparian countries. Okay, this is what we call it as lower riparian countries. That means those countries which are at the you can say receiving end of water. So at the mercy of China, we are receiving water, to put it this way. Now, in the same way, China controls a lot of countries in its neighborhood, from Myanmar to Laos to Vietnam. Okay, to all these countries, China often uses water diplomacy. Okay, that means whenever we are having not so good relations with China, the flow of water would get impacted. And there are like many ecological reports. Okay, there are like if you study your environment and biodiversity, you'll often see that many reports which claim that the floods in Assam, the floods in Northeast, often they are not naturally occurred floods, they are man-made floods. That means what China would be doing is China would be constructing huge dams, huge reservoirs across this, and often suddenly releases the water. Okay, that's what we call it as water bomb. Okay, suddenly the water is released, which would flood all the downstream areas. Okay, we do not know how far it is correct, but what we can expect is China having a control over these waters is never good for India without having a proper agreement. Okay, with lot of countries, even with Pakistan, we are having a treaty called Indus Water Treaty. Okay, but with China, we do not have any treaty. That means it is completely done in an ad hoc manner. Is it clear? Okay. Now, if you want to understand more about this one, the Brahmaputra, I think this is one thing which is even more important, the challenge of Brahmaputra. Okay, we'll just try to understand about Brahmaputra. Okay, right now. Brahmaputra in China is called as it's called as Yarlung Zangpo. Yarlung, Y-A-R-L-U-N-G, Yarlung Zangpo, T-S-A-N-G-P-O. Okay, and then again there is an alternative spelling. Okay, here you can say Yartung Zangpo. Okay, so don't get suddenly shocked in prelims. Okay, what is this? It is nothing but Brahmaputra. Okay, if you look at the path of Brahmaputra, you can see here it is starting from here, and it would slowly reach a particular syntaxial bend in Himalayas. Can anyone tell me what is this syntaxial bend called? Okay, the Himalayas are having a bend. Okay, something like a U curve. Okay, where the Brahmaputra takes a turn and enters into India. Okay, from here onwards, we call it as Brahmaputra. Now, can anyone tell me what is this syntaxial bend in northeast of India called? Okay, if you know, just sorry.
Hairpin bend, sir.
Hairpin bend, but what is that? What is a place called?
In India.
Yeah, what is the place called?
I don't know exactly, sir.
Okay, anyone knows? Very famous. Okay, put it in the chat box, otherwise I'll tell you. Okay, if you don't know. So there are two syntaxial bends in Himalayas. One is here and one is here. Okay, where the river systems completely change their course. Okay, one is here. Now, what exactly China is doing is China is constructing huge dams. Okay, you can see here. So all these are the reports. Okay, which probably by intelligence agencies, probably from the Indian side, but we do not know what is really happening in China. Okay, because you cannot file an RTA to know what is happening in China. Okay, because China works in a very opaque manner. Okay, unlike India. Okay, now we can see that China is constructing huge amounts of reservoirs, okay, which are never good for India. Maybe they might create artificial droughts, or they might create even artificial floods, okay, which China was using it to create for other countries as well, not only for India. Okay, so, and there are also reports that China is constructing nuclear explosions in these regions. Okay, please keep your microphones on mute if you don't want to speak. Okay, there is a noise coming from your end. Okay, thank you. Okay, all right. So there are also reports that China is conducting a lot of peaceful nuclear explosions, okay, so that it can be able to connect a lot of rivers together. Okay, now these areas, if you look from geography perspective, these areas are very sensitive regions. Okay, because we know that there are like lot of plates. Okay, it is a geological fault. Maybe your geography faculty would be telling you that Indian plate and Eurasian plate meet each other. Okay, and it is a geological fault, and any kind of nuclear explosions might completely make this area prone for seismic activity. Okay, there could be more and more earthquakes. Okay, which is what like many scholars are often portraying that it is a concern for India. Okay, but we do not know whether China is conducting this or not. But what we can know is China is constructing huge multi-purpose projects which are never good for a downstream country like India. Is it clear? Now at the same time, there is an alternative view. Okay, a opposite view. We often claim that China is constructing huge projects on its side, but when we are coming from Indian side, India is not constructing the projects at the same pace. Okay, this we know. Okay, because you can say in China they are able to construct within a record time, but in India you can see these reports. Okay, I think the right set statistic, a lot of projects are being sanctioned, but none of the projects have been completed. Okay, why is it like that? Now water, can anyone tell me, in India is it a state subject or a union subject? Water, okay, it is a state subject.
State subject.
State subject. Okay, in India water is a state subject. That means state government has the authority to do or to manage its water. Okay, now what happens is the Indian government says that because water is a state subject, okay, let the state deal with it. Okay, now what states say that we do not have funds? Okay, there is a lot of, you can say, other challenges in Northeast. Like there is a infrastructural challenge. Okay, there is you can say insurgency challenge. Okay, we cannot get proper material on time. Okay, there are multiple challenges from this one. We need central government's intervention, or we need funds from central government. Understood it? So state governments blame central government blames state government. Okay, both of them blame. For example, even if Ministry of Power gives the approval, the Ministry of Environment says don't go ahead with. Okay, Ministry of Northeastern region comes here and says that don't go with this project, go with this project. So often there is a multiple agencies in India which are creating administrative troubles to complete the projects. Understood this? So on one hand we are saying that China is constructing projects, but on the other hand we also need to take the blame that we are not completing our projects on time. Okay, though multiple projects have been sanctioned. Okay, you can see if the font is visible, you can see a lot of projects have been sanctioned. Okay, they were approved way back in 2007. Till now people are thinking, our political leaders are still thinking whether to go ahead or not. Okay, this is what we need to also understand, that you cannot only blame China for everything wrong in our country. Is it clear? We need to take some blame on ourselves also. Okay, that means there are some administrative challenges, there are some, you can say, political challenges, okay, within the country, which would prevent India in going ahead in constructing the projects. Is this clear? Okay, suddenly Arundhati Roy would come into picture. Okay, suddenly Medha Patkar would come into picture. Okay, suddenly Arnab Goswami would start a prime time debate, okay, whether we should start that project or not. Okay, suddenly some person would file an RTI. Okay, suddenly the court would come into picture. Okay, a local court, Guwahati High Court says that don't go ahead with this project. And notice this. This is what which happens in a country like India. Okay, that means we don't have a lot of streamlining of going ahead with the projects. Okay, clear when we are talking about the water disputes. So definitely we can say that China is not a very friendly neighbor. Okay, but at the same time we also need to understand that there are some challenges or there are some problems from our end as well. Okay, that is where despite having a huge amount of you can say natural advantage, okay, we are not able to use it, but whereas China is able to turn its natural advantage to its to benefit itself, but whereas India could not. Okay, clear on the water front? Any questions on the water conflicts? Okay, all right. Now, next one, the third issue, which is there between India and China. Right on BRI or encirclement, envelopment, and entanglement. Encirclement, envelopment, and entanglement. Okay, encirclement, you can just write down. It is strengthening China's strategic presence, strengthening China's strategic presence, strengthening China's strategic presence in and around target countries. In and around target countries. In and around target countries. Okay, just give me a moment. I'll just be back. Okay, so it is more on a strategic terms. Okay, it is more on a strategic terms. Second one, envelopment. Integrating. Okay, envelopment means integrating the target country's economy into Chinese economy. Integrating the target country's economy into Chinese economy. Okay, it's what we call it as economic. And entanglement means exploiting the domestic contradictions of the target country. Okay, entanglement means exploiting domestic contradictions of the target country. Okay, now just let me explain what China is doing to India. Okay, now for example, now India is a target, okay, for China. Now what China would do is on three fronts. One is on encirclement, the second one is on envelopment, third one is on entanglement. Okay, encirclement. Now India would be surrounded by ports and roads. Okay, ports and roads in and around India. Okay, so it would encircle it. What is the problem with this? At any point of time, all these ports and roads can be turned into military bases. Okay, which is a strategic concern for a country like India. This is what we call it as encirclement. The second one is what we call it as envelopment. Envelopment means they try to integrate India's economy into Chinese economy. Okay, that means if India need to come out of this one, it is almost impossible. Okay, because India's economy is very much tied with Chinese economy. Okay, today you would have seen that almost every other electronic product is from China. Okay, we cannot stop Chinese imports. Have noticed this? Okay, because Indian economy would suffer if you try to do something to China. Okay, the Indian economy is going to suffer. Okay, this is what the envelopment means. That is on the economic terms. The third one is entanglement. That means India is having internal security challenges. Okay, we know that India is having left-wing extremism. Okay, the problem of insurgency in Northeast, the problem of terrorism in Kashmir. Now, what is something important to understand is China is involved in all the three. Okay, China often gives moral support, arms and ammunition to left-wing extremists. Okay, and the Naxal movements. Okay, many a times there are reports that they are using the Chinese-made weapons. Okay, the Maoists in India. Okay, the insurgent movements, often China gives shelter. Okay, directly or indirectly to the insurgent movements which are happening in Nagaland, in Manipur. Okay, in Arunachal. Okay, the insurgents are often given safe haven. Okay, money. Okay, the other. Okay, where India wanted to declare him as a global terrorist, China stopped it. Okay, we all sometimes openly, overtly, covertly. Okay, this is what which happens in the you can say entanglement phase. See, India is enveloped. Questions? Okay, now right more on encirclement. Encirclement. Belt and Road Initiative of China, BRI. Okay, the project. Okay, which would come again and again. Okay, you might get a full-fledged question on Belt and Road. Just beside that, right, one road, OBOR, one belt, one road, and strike it off. What was called OBOR, words OBOR, but it is an outdated term. It is not a okay, right? BR, Belt and Road Initiative. Belt and Road Initiative. Okay, it is a huge economic project. Okay, it is a huge infrastructural project of China. Okay, huge. Infrastructural project of China. Components. Okay, one for constructing roads, one for constructing ports. Okay, the first one is called Silk Road Economic Belt. The first phase is called Silk Road Economic Belt, SREB. Silk Road Economic Belt. Okay, these are all official names. Okay, economic belt. Or and second one, 21st century maritime silk route. 21st century maritime silk route, MSR. Maritime silk route. Okay, which is involved in constructing roads, ports. Okay, what we need to understand is BRI is not just about constructing ports and roads, but also encircling a lot of countries, including India. Okay, if you look at the a lot of ports which are being constructed by China, okay, a lot of ports and roads which are being constructed by China, what you realize is India is being encircled by a huge amounts of Chinese projects. And we also know that China is often working in a very opaque manner. Okay, we do not know what exactly China is constructing. Okay, on paper it is called roads and ports, but probably there could be military bases as well. Okay, because most of the you can say projects are being done by state-led agencies of China. Okay, which work in a opaque manner, and at any point of time they can be turning into military bases, which is a huge security concern for India. Okay, are we clear what exactly the BRI and what is the security implication for India? Okay, it is often called as, okay, if you want you can write down under SREB. Under SREB, okay, you can see the black colored one, the black colored lines which are there, which are roads, okay, which are huge roads, okay, which are being constructed by China. Okay, it is having 6 components. Okay, it is having 6 components. What is important for India are 2. The first one, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC. Second one, BCIM. Bangladesh, China, India, Myanmar Corridor. I think yesterday we were discussing about it. Okay, also called Calcutta Kunming Corridor. Okay, because it connects the areas where there is a huge amount of drug production and trafficking, Golden Triangle. Okay, because of that, all the countries are suffering. Okay, because of the drug trafficking problem. So probably this BCIM could be important from India's perspective in controlling the drug trafficking and insurgency problems. Okay, whereas CPEC is the most controversial of the projects. Okay, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC. Okay, now why exactly CPEC? Why China is so much interested in CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor? Okay, what you can see here, it connects 2 turbulent provinces. In China, it connects in China. In China. It connects Xinjiang province. Okay, we discussed the other day that Xinjiang is the most turbulent province of China. Okay, it is something like Kashmir of India. Okay, where there is a huge amount of rebel groups. Okay, it is prone for Islamic extremism. Okay, Xinjiang. Okay, it connects Xinjiang with Baloch province of Pakistan. Okay, if you are aware that Balochistan is another trouble area for Pakistan. Okay, so it is a trouble area for Pakistan. It is a troubled area for China. Now, this China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, okay, what you can see the orange colored line, is probably generating huge amounts of revenues or huge amounts of employment opportunities for the people living in these regions. Okay. Now, what is the concern for India? Why India is not very happy with this one? Sorry. Yeah. Now, why India is so much concerned about the China-Pakistan economic corridor? Now, what India says is this particular corridor is passing through Pak-occupied Kashmir. Okay, we know that Pak-occupied Kashmir, India often claims in its maps that this Pak-occupied Kashmir belongs to India. Now, China and Pakistan getting closer and constructing a huge project in this region is never good from security point of view of India. See, India also wants development of this, but at the same time, the way that Pakistan is working, the way China is working, they cannot be trusted. Okay, in the current circumstances, and at the same time, a huge amount of projects which are running through the disputed regions, which is never good for India's sovereignty. So it is a sovereignty issue for India. It is an internal security issue for India. India says that India is not opposing BRI. India is only opposing the way the BRI is being constructed in POK. Okay, the way it is being constructed in a opaque manner, which is a concern for India. Are we clear what exactly the China-Pakistan economic corridor? It says that it is just a road, but it is more than a road for India. Okay, it is a sovereignty challenge for India. Okay, is it clear? Any questions so far? Or anything you wanted to add? Okay, now see from China's perspective. Okay, from India's perspective, we are calling it as encirclement. Okay, right. But see from China's perspective, China says that China trade routes, if you see the Chinese trade routes, we discussed that most of the development in China is happening on the eastern part of China. Okay, on the coastal regions of China. Now, China says that most of its trade, okay, almost 80% of its oil trade, okay, and more than I think 50% of the total trade of China passes through a small strait in the Indian Ocean. That is what we call it as Strait of Malacca. Now, China is having a question of what we call it as Malacca dilemma. Okay, why is it like that? Okay, because this particular region is becoming more and more important from US standpoint. Okay, if you are aware about the US presence, US is increasing its presence in Indian Ocean region. Okay, including it is having a huge base in Diego Garcia. It is a US base. And today we know that US and China are not having very good relations. Now, what China is afraid of is at any point of time, US can cut off China from the rest of the world. Okay, if something happens in this region, the whole Chinese economy gets choked. Now, to come out of its own encirclement, what India is saying, China is doing encirclement. What China is saying, US is doing encirclement. Is it clear? Okay, now from China's perspective, they say that to come out of Malacca dilemma, the CPC corridor is another alternative route we are constructing it. Okay, and more importantly, this would help in bringing stability in a country like Pakistan. Okay, because there is this might bring economic growth. This might bring some good employment opportunities for Pakistan. This way, we are able to tackle the problems of terrorism in Pakistan as well. This is what China claims. Are we on it? Okay, the two versions of it. One way, India says that it is an encirclement for India. But see from China's perspective, China says that we are coming out of Malacca dilemma. At the same time, we are looking for development of Pakistan, okay, and the nearby regions, okay, so that we can be able to do this. And we are doing this not for India, but for ourselves, because Xinjiang itself is a troubled province for China. Okay, so we wanted development in the Xinjiang province as well. Okay, in the same way, Pakistan also needs development in Balochistan province. Okay, so because of that, we are doing this. Okay, this is from Chinese perspective. But whatever the reason be, what we can see that is we are being encircled by Chinese ports and roads. Okay, a lot of ports are being constructed in and around India. Okay, which is what we call it as string of pearls. Okay, it is called string of pearls. Okay, if you see Gwadar port, okay, in Pakistan, if you see Hambantota port, if you see Rakhine port in Myanmar, or if you see Chittagong port in Bangladesh, Okay, this is what a lot of ports which are being constructed across the Indian Ocean region. Okay, which is often the media claims as string of pearls. Okay, is everyone clear till now? Okay, now what India is doing from its side? Write down India's response. India's response. India's response. India started a counter strategy. India started a counter strategy. Okay, called necklace of diamonds. Okay, sometimes you might get short note. Okay, so don't think this is something different. Okay, string of pearls, necklace of diamonds, all these are strategic terms when we are using from India's India and China perspective. Okay, counter strategy called necklace of diamonds. Necklace of diamonds. Okay, so India also started constructing a lot of ports. Okay, in Indian Ocean region. Okay, again you need to substantiate with examples. The Assumption Islands in Seychelles. See, again geography comes into your help. Okay, if you are having good knowledge of geography, okay, then only you will be able to appreciate all these ones. Okay, the Assumption Islands in Seychelles, the Chabahar port in Iran. Okay, again we'll discuss this one in detail. Okay, because the second phase is not coming to India. This is a concern for India. We'll discuss about it. Chabahar port in Iran. Okay, Duqm port in Oman. DUQM, Duqm port in Oman. Sabang port in Indonesia. Sabang port in Indonesia. Changai port in Singapore. Okay, in addition to that, India started developing good relations with Vietnam. Okay, we'll discuss in ASEAN. Okay, for example, if you are aware that the BrahMos missile, okay, which India is developing with the help of Russia. Okay, we have got into a contract with Vietnam that we are going to supply the defense products to Vietnam. Okay, and also India started its diplomatic relations with Japan. Okay, under a huge project called Asia Africa Growth Corridor. Now you may ask, why Japan? Because Japan is a rival of China. Is it clear? To counter China, we need to develop relations with those countries which it might be having some turbulent relations. India started growing closer to USA. Okay, hope you might be aware about the trend of it. Okay, India started developing good relations with Japan. India started good relations with Mongolia. Okay, with Japan we started a project called Asia Africa Growth Corridor, which will come to that. Okay, why India is doing all this? To counter the BRI. To counter the BRI. Okay, but to put it in this way, okay, to put it in short, all these projects are very small compared to the ambitions and the levels of the BRI. Okay, they are of no match to that of BRI, because China is having huge amounts of economic or huge amounts of forex reserves, which China uses for developing the projects like BRI. Now, whatever India is doing is of no match to that of BRI. This also we should be aware of. Okay, if China is investing like $50 billion or $100 billion, India is in a position to invest hardly $1 billion. Okay, so all these projects are, you can say, a drop in the ocean. Okay, compared to the ambition with which China is proceeding on the BRI. Okay, are we clear what is encirclement is? Okay, and what India is doing for this? Any questions, or are we clear till now? Hope all of you are completely awake. Okay, because early in the morning. Okay, I would suggest you to keep your videos on. Okay, so that way we can ensure that we are engaging ourselves. Okay, If you don't have any issues, please turn on your videos. Okay, so that I can see your faces, we can interact. Okay, at least we'll be more disciplined. Okay, that we are not on bed. Okay, we freshen up. Okay, sit down, take our notes. Okay, at least for 1.5 hours, we'll be completely engaged. Okay, because we are already spending some time. Okay, so let us try to extract the most out of it. Okay, all of you, please turn on your videos. Okay, if you are comfortable. Okay, all right. So moving forward. The second one, envelopment. Okay, this is on the economic front. What China is trying to do on the economic front. Envelopment. You can write down. India has, first of all, you need to compare what is India and what is China on the economic terms. Okay, you can take key statistics. The GDP of India. Okay, maybe you can make a small table kind of thing. Okay, which would be easier for you to compare. Okay, on one side write India and one side write China. Here your economy faculty would be a better judge, but I'm just going to give you some key statistics. Okay, what is the total GDP of India? How many trillion dollars?
Around $3 trillion.
$3 trillion, good.
Around 5 trillion.
Approximately $3 trillion. Okay, we are just writing the approximate numbers. Okay, and come to China. How much is it?
Around 14.14.
Okay, 14. Okay, what we should do if you don't know? Just Google it. Okay, GDP of China. It is very simple. Okay, it won't be taking a lot of time. Okay, GDP China. Okay, you can use Google for a lot of other things. You know, not only for Big Boss. Okay, you can use it for a lot of other things, including what is the GDP of China, what is the forex reserves of China. Okay, it is about $16 trillion. Okay, GDP of China. Understood it? The comparison between India and China. Okay, Chinese economy is 5 times more than India's economy. Okay, 5 times more. Okay, now the other metric we use is forex. Okay, the foreign exchange reserves. The forex reserves. India has something like $500 billion of forex reserves. Approximately. China has something like $4,000 billion. China has $4,000 billion. Okay, understood it. That means China's forex is more than India's GDP. Okay, what it is having on hand is much more than what India is having as a GDP. Okay, so it is a huge amount of forex reserves. No country has this much of reserves, not even USA. Okay, now what we can see here is China is having a huge amount of economic advantage over India. Okay, now what we see here is when we are talking about India's exports. Okay, when we are talking about India's exports. Now, just write down a few other statistics. India exports the goods of about $10 billion to China. Goods of $10 billion to China. Okay, whereas China exports approximately $70 billion of the goods to India. Okay, hope we are connected.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So India exports something like $10 billion of goods to China, whereas China exports something like $70 billion of goods to India. Okay, to put it in other words, China is dumping goods into India. Is it clear? Okay, to put it in layman's terms, we know that India's economy is flooded with Chinese goods and services. Okay, now we can see that India is having a trade deficit. When we are saying trade deficit, it means that exports minus imports. Okay, so 70 minus 10, something like $60 billion, which would give rise to something called current account deficit. Okay, which is what we call it as current account deficit. India is having a huge trade deficit when we are talking with China. Okay, that means our exports are very much small compared to what China is exporting to India. And you can write one more just statistic to keep it more this one. The Chinese trade to India. Okay, note, you can write note. The Chinese trade to India. Chinese trade to India is just 2%. Is just 2%. Is just 2% of the entire exports of China. Of the entire exports of China. The entire exports of China. Now, why this is important? Because often you see in media that we need to stop China's the imports from China. And notice this. Okay, often we see that ban Chinese products. Okay, stop imports from China. Now, what we need to also notice here is if India is banning all Chinese imports, okay, it would hardly affect 2% of Chinese economy. Is this clear? Okay, so again, we need to substantiate all these answers with statistics. Simply put, if India stops the Chinese imports, it is going to impact India more than China. Is this clear? This is what we call it as envelopment. Okay. In other words, India is being enveloped into Chinese economy. Okay. We are talking about a huge country like India. Okay. We are not talking about a small country like Malaysia or Indonesia. Okay. Or Vietnam. Okay. Imagine those countries. They're completely enveloped by Chinese economy. Okay, even countries like India are not able to challenge it. Even countries like US are not able to come out of Chinese imports. And notice this. Okay, this is what China is having a huge advantage when we are talking about the economic terms. Okay, so I think some other statistic I would just show you. Okay, like the trade deficit, we discussed it is about $60 billion. Now, I'm just giving you the rough statistic. Every year on year, you can see some years the deficit is increasing. Okay, this is the imports. I'm just giving you the approximate numbers for us to remember. We said that the exports are $10 billion and imports are something like $60 billion. Sorry, $70 billion. Okay, if you are taking the average. Okay, and trade deficit is about $60 billion. I'm just taking the average of this. So when you're writing your exam, you should be having some rough statistics with you, okay, so that you would be able to substantiate in your answers. Okay, now India is having three things which it can export. Okay, India is having three products or three sectors which India can export to China. Okay, one is pharma products. Okay, where India is having a manufacturing advantage. One is IT services. Okay, we know that the IT services is a huge market in India. Okay, one is agricultural products. Okay, agricultural products. Now, what China cleverly does, does to India is it would ban all these coming into India. Sorry, coming into China. Okay, for example, when Indian pharma companies wanted to export to China, China says that China comes with new and new regulations, okay, which would make Indian pharma companies to enter into China almost difficult. Okay, China would come up with new rules saying that a clinical trial need to be conducted in China. Okay, getting an approval for clinical trial in China is virtually impossible for an Indian pharma company. Is it clear? Okay, China does not say that we would ban India's goods, but China creates an environment that Indian goods and services cannot enter Chinese market. Okay, in the same way, IT services. Now we are having an advantage over IT services, but in China, many of the IT products are banned, which are exported. I hope you are aware that lot of IT services are state controlled, heavily state controlled by China. And most importantly, all these are in Chinese language. There is a language barrier as well. Okay, where hardly Indians learn Chinese. Okay, so there is a language barrier. There is a state control barrier when we are talking about IT services. Okay, then the third one, just give me a moment. Third one is agricultural products. Third one is agricultural products. Now, China invokes SPS and SPS measures often. Okay, we'll discuss about what are SPS measures. Okay, what is sanitary and phytosanitary measures under the WTO regime. Okay, we'll discuss about it. But for time being, make a note that these are all often used by China to ban imports from India. Okay, what it means is China is asking India to open up its economy, whereas China is protecting its economy very strongly from India's exports. Is this clear? Okay, on one hand, China wants India to open up its economy. On the other hand, whatever the advantage India is having on pharma or IT or agriculture, they are cleverly blocked by China on all these fronts. Okay, and what is the solution for this? Again, you cannot only blame China for dumping goods into India. Okay, our manufacturing base should be competitive enough. Okay, you cannot ban a country in a globalized world like today. Okay, banning imports it can be a short-term measure. Okay, what can be a long-term solution is we need to develop the manufacturing base which is competitive enough to deal with the international market. Okay, this is what the long-term solution. So when you're writing your answers, be aware that banning Chinese product might seem to be like a quick solution. Okay, but it is not a long-term solution. Long-term solution is ensuring that our products are globally competitive. Okay, both on quality wise as well as on the pricing wise. Okay, is this clear? Any question till now on the envelopment part? All right, I'll take it as a no. The third one is entanglement. Okay, what is entanglement? Making the domestic contradictions of India work for China. Okay, that is China is exploiting the left-wing extremism, terrorism, or insurgency movements. Okay, in all this. So again, like we are talking from the reports of a lot of IB reports, lot of you can say the global reports. Like a classic example is this one. Okay, the Masood Azhar. Okay, when there has been an attack, okay, on the Indian security forces, India wanted to declare Masood Azhar and his organization as a global terrorist organization. Okay, but China has stopped it. China said that for us, he's not a terrorist. Okay, though India has produced all the claims, all the evidences. Okay, now this is a clear, this one, how China is trying to protect, okay, or China is trying to safeguard all this, you can say anti-India movements. Okay, and often we can see that we discuss that the insurgency movements in Nagaland or Manipur or in Assam, they are often funded by China. Okay, often like the drugs or the arms trafficking or drug trafficking or providing safe havens or providing the funding, providing moral support, okay, to left-wing extremist movements in central India or in northeastern India or in the Jammu Kashmir, we can often see there is a Chinese involvement in India. Okay, now again, you cannot blame China for everything wrong in our country, as I told. Okay, because you have to take some blame on ourselves as well. Okay, because the problem of insurgency, okay, the problem of insurgency did not start with China. Okay, it was already there. The problem of insurgency is already there. China started exploiting it. Okay, in the same way, the left-wing extremism, okay, the left-wing extremism started because of our own administrative failure. Okay, we did not provide proper livelihood, we did not provide proper rehabilitation, we did not have proper tribal laws. Okay, we did not implement 5th schedule and 6th schedule of the Indian Constitution properly. Okay, it is our political failure, it is our administrative failure, and now China started exploiting this one. Is this clear? The same thing in Kashmir. Okay, it is again a failure of Indian government. Okay, the policy in Kashmir did not work, which Pakistan started exploiting, which China started exploiting later. Is it clear? Okay, so everything wrong in India, you cannot just put the blame on China or Pakistan. Okay, this is also we should be aware. Definitely there is a Chinese involvement, but China did not start left-wing extremism in India. China did not start terrorism in India. China did not start insurgency. It is already there because of our own administrative and political failures. Okay, which we need to also acknowledge about. Okay, is this clear? So when you're writing your answer, don't be just blaming China for everything wrong in the country. Okay, definitely China started exploiting it, no doubt about it. But these problems cannot be tackled only with the help of China. Okay. Any questions on the 3 E's of this one? Encirclement, envelopment, and entanglement. Any questions? We discussed about BRI, we discussed about imports, exports, we discussed about internal security problems of India. And how are these exploited by China for its own advantage? Okay, no questions today. So hope like we are clear till now. Okay, all right, moving forward. You can write a short note. Okay, take this as assignment. One country, two systems. One country, two systems. One country, two systems. And one China policy. See, one country, two systems is about Hong Kong and Macau. One country, two systems is about Hong Kong and Macau. I expect a question on Hong Kong. Okay, because it is in news because of the recent protests, the recent, you can say, the developments which are happening in Hong Kong. Okay, I expect a question on this one. Okay, but just try to find out what exactly the one country, two systems is. Okay, so to put it in a nutshell, I'll just give a brief about it. Hong Kong was under British rule. Okay, and Macau was under Portuguese rule. Okay, just like think of India. Okay, in India, most of the India was under British rule. Okay, but I hope you are aware that Puducherry was under French rule and Goa was under Portuguese rule. Okay, which got independence from French and Portuguese at a later point of time, and they were merged with India. I hope you are aware about that. Okay, the Pondicherry and Goa were under French rule and Portuguese rule respectively, and they did not get independence in 1947. Okay, they got they were annexed by India post independence in 1960s. Okay, now in the same way, in the case of China also, the Hong Kong and Macau were there in British and Portuguese control until 97 and 98. Okay, 97, British government handed over Hong Kong to China with a condition that there would be some autonomy which would be maintained in Hong Kong. Okay, so this is what the transfer. The same way the French government also said to Indian government that please try to maintain the autonomy of Pondicherry. Okay, because the people of Puducherry were having a concern that it might be merged with the Madras state. Okay, the erstwhile Madras state. Okay, that's where Indian government said that we are not going to merge it with the Madras state or Tamil Nadu. We are going to keep it like a union territory. In the same way with Goa. Okay, Goa was also an union territory. In 1987, it was given in statehood. Okay, hope you are aware about all this. Now, in the same way, the British government and Portuguese government transferred these territories to China, given a condition that a autonomy would be maintained in Hong Kong and Macau. Okay, they have their own passport. Okay, the Hong Kong and Macau, they have their own passport. They have their own currency. Okay, they have their own internal sovereignty. Okay, but ultimate control is with China. China is having only the external sovereignty over Hong Kong and Macau. But often there are protests, there are concerns that China is not honoring these agreements. Okay, that China is using an iron hand to involve in the internal developments of Hong Kong and Macau. This is what we call it as one country, two systems. Now, in your assignment, try to find out what exactly the conditions on which Hong Kong was transferred to China. Okay, what are the conditions on which Macau was transferred to China? Okay, now Chinese government said that for 50 years, we are not going to interfere. Okay, 50 years means till 2047 for Hong Kong, till 2048 for Macau. We are not going to interfere. We are going to maintain sufficient internal autonomy of these regions. But the concern here is why China, or is China not honoring the agreement? Okay, so try to find out what are all the developments which are taking place in Hong Kong. Okay, and try to make your answer balanced. Okay, in the same way, the Macau as well. What exactly the condition on which it was transferred to China, and what are the conditions? What are the concerns of the people of Macau that China is not honoring the agreement? Okay, this is what we call one country, two systems. Okay, I think I have given you a overview of what exactly this one is, but I would suggest you to dig deeper and make a notes, maybe a one-page notes on this. Okay, all right. The next one is one China policy. So again, don't get confused with one China and one country, two systems. Now, what is this one China policy? One China policy is about the relationship between Taiwan and China. Okay, Taiwan and mainland China. Okay, Taiwan, I hope you are aware that it is a small island, okay, just near to China and China. Now, what happened was after the Xinhai Revolution, if you could recollect, in 1911, there was something called Xinhai Revolution, right? Okay, yesterday we were discussing about it. Okay, where the Republic of China would be established. Okay, the Republic of China. Please keep your microphones on mute. We can hear everything in your house. Okay, otherwise, yeah. All right. Now in 1911, there has been a revolution in China where the Manchu dynasty would be overthrown and Republic of China would be established. Now, this Republic of China would be led by a political party called Kuomintang, KMT. Okay. Now, this KMT would try to restore the power in the whole of China. But what would happen is by 1949, okay, a new political party would come into picture. That's what we call it as Communist Party of China, which would establish something called PRC, People's Republic of China. Now, there is a conflict between ROC and PRC. Okay, this conflict is what we call it as one China policy. Okay, ROC is called Republic of China and PRC is called People's Republic of China. Now, both of them claim that we are China. Okay, both of them claim that we are the true Chinese. But who are true Chinese? Okay, they have come to an agreement that we would decide it later. But for the external world, we are only one China. This is what we call it as one China policy. Okay, now the one China policy is something different. Okay, to that of Kashmir issue of India. Okay, what is happening in Kashmir or Nagaland? Kashmir wanted independence from India. Nagaland wants independence from India. But unlike this one, what ROC wants is not independence from China, but what ROC wants is to control the whole of China. Okay, is it clear? What PRC wants is to control the whole of Taiwan as well. Now, for the external world, it is only one China. This is what we call it as one China policy. Okay, so this becomes important because there are some articles in the newspapers just because China is interfering into our Kashmir issue. Okay, because China is peddling into our Kashmir issue or Nagaland issue, should we not interfere into China's one country, two systems or China's one China policy? Okay, I hope you got the point. Can we use this one as a bargaining chip against China? Okay, so if you intervene into our Kashmir issue, we are going to intervene into your one China policy or with the Hong Kong and Macau issue. Okay, should India be involved in this or not? Okay, maybe you might get a question on that line, but just be aware about what is one country, two systems and one China policy. Any question? I hope you would be doing some additional work and preparing your notes. I just given you the overview of what is the issue. Okay, I hope you will take this as an assignment and you would be submitting your 100 words. Okay, when you're submitting your assignments, just make sure that you are not writing a whole story. Okay, I'm not interested in story. Okay, so try to make your answers more and more interesting. Okay, try to make your answers with a map, a flow chart, okay, which would be easier to comprehend. Okay, I don't want copy paste answers. Okay, even if it is even if you are taking from any website, it's okay. Okay, but try to make your own. Okay, try to write it in your own words in a simple language. Okay, so that it would be easier for us to comprehend and revise at a later date. Okay, all right. Now, a few other issues with China. One is the Xi Jinping's leadership. Okay, there is a centralization. Okay, there is a over centralization in China. Okay, if you want, just write a short note. Okay, hope you are aware it is pronounced as Xi. It is not Levin. Okay, it is Xi Jinping. Okay, correct. The centralization of leadership. The centralization of leadership in China. The centralization of leadership in China. Okay, what you can see here, the Xi Jinping had made the changes in the constitution, in the Chinese constitution, which would allow him to continue as president of China indefinitely. Okay, now there are three roles in China. One is president of PRC. One is chairman of Central Military Commission. One is general secretary of Communist Party of China. Okay, now what happened during Xi Jinping's regime is all the three titles are given to himself. Okay, he made the changes in constitution by which he claimed that he claimed all the three titles, three important titles, including a lot of other titles as well. Okay, now what is the problem here? That the problem here is there has been a huge centralized leadership. Now, India is a democracy. Okay, dealing with another democracy would become easier for a country like India. Okay, dealing with another country with a similar political structure would become easy for a country like India. Now, there are concerns that China is emerging like a dictatorship, which is never good for country. Okay, and that too like an aggressive, a huge neighbor like China. Okay, because at any point of time, had it been democracy, okay, there would be checks and balances. They would not take any decision in you can say one single person's whims and fancies. Okay, now what is the concern for India is at any point of time this might get triggered. Okay, this might get escalated. Okay, so as long as we are having good relations with Xi Jinping, it could be good. Okay, but otherwise, maybe even if provided the given conditions, okay, at any point of time, even a small issue might escalate even into a full-fledged war. Is it clear? Okay, often the dictators have the tendency of waging war, okay, just to divert the attentions, okay, of their populations. So this is which is a concern for India, that China is becoming more and more centralized. Okay, a huge centralized leadership is never good for a country like India. But at the same time, there is an opportunity as well, because if we are able to maintain good relations, we might be able to resolve the existing border conflicts, because a strong leadership can take a strong decision. Okay, but at the same point of time, a decentralized or a democratic leadership is always what India prefers, okay, rather than a dictatorial type of regime. So I think these are all the challenges which are there between India and China. I think we got an overview of all the challenges because there are like thousands of other challenges. We cannot get into all, but I think we got an overview on how to prepare and what to prepare. Okay, I'll give a pause here for us to like come up with any questions or any discussion points. Okay, all right, I'll take it as a no that we are very much clear till now. Okay, now let us get into the other areas of cooperation. Okay, as I told that most of the students, they try to focus only on conflicts because that is more exciting. Okay, but what we also need to be aware of, we should be you can say we should be having our notes prepared for the areas of cooperation. Okay, now there are a lot of areas where India and China need to cooperate with each other. Okay, sorry, before that we'll just try to mention about areas of competition. Okay, then we'll come to cooperation. Okay, areas of competition. You can write down. Some of the important areas of competition. Okay, I'll just give you the titles for now. Okay, the subheadings for now. And when we are dealing with that country, we'll spend some time to understand more about it. Okay, write down. IORA, Indian Ocean region. First one, Indian Ocean region. See, again, like it is not that you have to always put this one here. Okay, the Indian Ocean region can be an area of conflict or area of cooperation as well. Okay, but this is my way of interpretation so that it would be easier. Okay, Indian Ocean region, where India and China are competing with each other in turning a lot of countries towards them. Okay, you would have seen that Maldives is turning towards India, Sri Lanka is turning towards China. Okay, or Seychelles and Mauritius are turning towards India. Okay, whereas countries like Indonesia are turning towards China. Okay, now what we can see here is there is something like a geopolitical chessboard. Okay, where India is making a move, China is making two moves. Okay, India is making another moves. Okay, so this is how it is happening in the case of competition. Okay, they wanted to take a lot of countries on board. Okay, mostly in the Indian Ocean region. Okay, we'll discuss why Indian Ocean region is gaining prominence. Okay, but for time being, make a note. IOR. Then ASEAN countries, Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia. Central Asia. Central Asia. Okay, see, all this can be a full-fledged question. Okay, explain the role played by India and role played by China in African development. Okay, so this is how the questions can be formulated. Okay, now as a smart student, what you have to do is in Latin America, what India is doing, what China is doing. Okay, try to find out more about it. Okay, in Central Asia, what India is doing, what China is doing. Compare and contrast Indian and Chinese investments in Central Asia. Okay, probable question. But if you're having the content with you, I hope these kind of questions are not very difficult, okay, to answer. Central Asia, Africa. Central Asia, Africa. And Latin America. Okay, we'll discuss when we are discussing about these countries in detail. We'll try to understand how India and China's roles are differing. Okay, for time being, just make a note of areas of competition. Okay, then the last one is areas of cooperation, okay, between India and China. Now, as I told that there are more areas of cooperation than there are areas of conflict. Okay, if there are like 20 areas of conflict, there could be 2000 areas of cooperation. Okay, we should be very much aware that there are more areas of cooperation than there are areas of conflict. Now, often the media portrays only the areas of conflict. Okay, but as a student who is preparing for civil services, you should be more aware that the cooperation is more important than conflicts. Okay, now why cooperation between India and China is really important? Okay, because we are having today shared troubles. Okay, starting from the pandemic to terrorism in Afghanistan. Okay, we are having the shared troubles because we are having the converging interests. Okay, from you can say the financials. Okay, from the regionalization of the world politics. Okay, from the you can say the challenges, the slowdown in the world economy. Okay, to the climate change problem, South-South cooperation. There are a lot of areas where India and China need to cooperate with each other. Okay, now just let me allow me for explaining a case study so that it would be easier for us to appreciate that fact. Okay, one is the area of environment. Okay, the area of environment and climate change, where why India and China need to converge with each other. Okay, now what is the common man's view of environment? Okay, that means we need to protect environment. Okay, otherwise like it is something. Okay, if we don't protect the environment, like it is going to lead to global warming and lot of other crises which would be there in the world. But how the political scholars view? The political scholars view that environment is something, a highly politicized area. Okay, it is not related to environment anymore. It is just politics which are at play. Okay, why? Because, okay, see, there is no doubt that we need to protect environment. Okay, so everyone is aware that we need to protect our environment. But what we should be aware of, who should be able to taking that responsibility? Okay, now let me just give you an example. Okay, hope you are aware about ozone depletion. Can anyone tell me what do you mean by ozone depletion? Why it is caused?
Greenhouse emissions.
Greenhouse gas? No, come on. Greenhouse gas would lead to global warming.
CFC, chlorofluorocarbons.
Chlorofluorocarbons, very good. From where they are emitted?
Except from ACs.
ACs and refrigerators.
Good. Okay, heating, ventilation, and refrigeration. Okay, because of this, the chlorofluorocarbons are emitted. Now, what would happen if there is a ozone depletion?
UV rays directly enter into
The atmosphere and would harm humans. Now, though there is a ozone depletion, when the UV rays are entering on the earth, not all the populations are affected equally. Hope you are aware about it. Because the people in India, people in Africa are not affected by this. Why? Anyone is aware of this fact? Okay, because people in India and people in Africa already have some kind of pigments in their skin, which is something like melanin. Okay, which they are having some kind of pigments where they are not really harmed by the UV rays falling on them. Okay, if you are aware of this fact. Okay, now the people who are mostly the Caucasian race, okay, the people who are living in Europe and US, they are more prone for this kind of UV things. Are you getting the point? Okay, now what exactly happening was, now to which countries this is more concerned about? Europe, okay, and US. These are developed countries, okay, because their populations might be more affected by this. Now, what they have done, they have come up with a law. That is what we call it as Montreal Protocol. Okay, what is this Montreal Protocol? Maybe if you just try to Google something about Montreal Protocol, it would tell you that the chlorofluorocarbons should not be there at all. Instead, there should be something like chlorofluorohydrocarbons, and they should be replaced with the hydrofluoroolefins, which was chlorine should be phased out. Okay, over time there should be phased out from chlorofluorocarbons to hydrocarbons to chlorofluoroolefins, which should be there. Now, what exactly we need to remember is this olefins. This is something called olefins, which is a refrigerants which is used in this one. Now, these olefins are manufactured by only one company in the world. Okay, which is an American company called DuPont. Understood this? Now, what they have put this, what the developed countries have gone ahead with Montreal Protocol is, all the countries in the world need to buy only olefins, okay, for all these refrigerants. Okay. Now, who is benefiting from this? Again, American companies. Understood this? How exactly they are making the use of climate change for their own benefit. Now, who is using air conditioning and ventilations in 1970s? Countries like India and China, or countries like US and Europe?
US and Europe.
Always. Okay, see, we can see that these are all developed countries. Now, the ozone depletion started because of developed countries. Okay, on the top of it, the ozone depletion is affecting the population of developed countries. But on whom the burden is put? On developing countries. Are you getting the point here? Now, the point I wanted to make here is the developed countries always have that habit of putting all their burdens on developing countries. This is what the developing countries saying that this is completely unfair. Okay, are you getting the point? Now, if you're talking about the environment, are we clear on this case study? How exactly they are using or they are manipulating the climate change in their own advantage. Okay, this is what happens in the case of environment. Now, whenever we are talking about environment, we should be talking about two things. One is adaptation. Okay, one is mitigation. Okay, one is adaptation and one is mitigation. Now, what is adaptation? Okay, what is adaptation? Now we are in 2021. What is adaptation means? Adaptation means that we need to adapt to the new environment. Okay, whatever the new changes are there, we need to adapt to that. Now, what is mitigation? Whatever the harm which is done, we need to tackle the harm which is done. We need to clean the environment properly. This is what mitigation is. Okay, are you getting this? Mitigation is about doing something in the past, okay, or correcting the wrongs which are done in the past. Adaptation means as it is like that, we need to adjust our conditions like that. Now, what happens is the countries like India and China, what they claim is who has spoiled our environment till now. It is not developing countries, it is developed countries which have spoiled the environment. Okay, now the same countries are talking about renewables. Are you aware of renewables like solar, wind? Now, who is manufacturing all these renewables? Again, developed countries. Are you getting the point here? Now, what developing countries are claiming? That when you're developing, there has been no restrictions. Okay, when the developed countries were in 1970s, 1960s, when they are getting industrialized, there was no restrictions on them. Okay, you freely emitted all your pollutants and spoiled the environment. On the top of it, now you are saying that these countries like India and China need to bear all the burden. On the top of it, you need to buy renewables from the developed countries again. Are you getting the point here? It is just like you are throwing some garbage on the road and you are asking your neighbor to clean it. Are you clear on this? So it is just what US and Europe are doing to other countries. That means they have spoiled the environment. In fact, all the environment which has been spoiled till now is because of the developed countries. Okay, but now today they are saying that the developing countries need to take the burden of this development. That means indirectly they are planning to put all the burden of you can say climate change or mitigation on India and China, which India and China are calling it as unfair. Okay, now on the top of it, you are not only putting the burden, you're also wanted to enter the new markets like renewables. See, what I'm saying is renewables are definitely good. Okay, no doubt about it. But the way they are being pushed on these countries is something unfair. Okay, this is what India and China and developing countries are arguing. So always there is a debate of North versus South. Okay, when I say the word North and South, North means developed countries. Okay, often in politics we use the words like North, global South. Okay, when you say the South, it means most of the countries in the southern hemisphere are developing countries. Okay, except for Australia and New Zealand. Okay, most of the countries in the southern hemisphere are developing countries, including India, China. Okay, when you use the word North-South dispute, okay, or South-South cooperation, okay, just be aware that it is a conflict between developed and developing countries. Now, what we need to also understand is all the institutions, starting from United Nations, all the institutions are dominated by developed countries. Okay, so whenever they are making a law, whenever they are making a rule, it is completely against the developing countries, including Asia and Africa. The only country which is having a place or which is having a say in the global institutions is China. So it becomes more logical for India to cooperate with China on these issues. Are you getting the point? Okay, so on one hand, we are saying that we are having a lot of conflicts. On the other hand, what we need to also understand is there are so many other areas where it becomes a need for both the countries to cooperate. India needs China's support and China needs India's support. Okay, is this clear? So without supporting each other, without cooperating each other, it becomes even more difficult. Okay, in today's globalized world. Okay, so this is what we need to understand, and this should be your bottom line in your answers. Okay, though there are, even if the question is trying to push you towards the areas of conflict, what we need to be writing as a bottom line is there are in fact even more areas like terrorism. Even China is facing the challenge of terrorism today. Okay, from the Xinjiang province or from Pakistan, a lot of projects that China is doing are being targeted. Okay, now China also learned from the experience that backing the terrorists, backing the insurgent movements is not something good. Okay, and China is doing for its own reasons. Okay, because if China's growth stops, because from outside China looks to be like very powerful. Okay, China looks to be like a huge economic power, but China has its own internal challenges. Okay, that's what we discussed. Okay, China has its own internal challenges. If its growth stops, if the growth of China stops, that is the end of China. Is it clear? Okay, because it might go to the same suffering of Soviet Union. I hope you are aware about Soviet Union. Soviet Union disintegrated and a small portion of Soviet Union called Russia was born. Why Soviet Union was disintegrated? Because the economic growth stopped. Okay, now China does not want to end up like Soviet Union. So at any cost, China wanted to grow. If the economic development stops, that is the end of China. China knows it very well because a lot of factions are there within China and outside China, which would try to stop the growth of China. Okay, including USA, including Europe, including a lot of other countries, which we'll discuss, including Japan. Okay, which will so if you look from Chinese prism, okay, the growth is something which is like a now or never issue for China. If you don't do or if you don't grow now, it is going to be your end, or you might see the same fate of Soviet Union. That is where for China the growth is mandatory. Now whatever the China is doing, it is for its own survival. Okay, this is what we also should be aware of. Okay, is this clear? I think we spent enough time on China, how to deal with a topic like a broad topic like China. I think in other countries we would not be having enough time for us to discuss at the same length, but I would strongly advise you to follow the same path like geography, history, okay, the background of relations. So this way, if you prepare, I think you'll be having a lot of content with you. Okay, any questions? So no discussion is complete. Okay, without yeah, someone wants to speak, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Basically, so like we have compared China with Soviet Union, right? Like it feels growth is essential at the same rate, or like it should not be stagnated. So can't we apply the same to any country in the world, or is it like the special case with China that it might end up that way?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. See, what happens is if in India, if GDP grows at 6%, GDP grows at 5%, GDP grows at 2%, nothing is going to happen. Why? Because we are having strong political setup. Okay, we are having strong political setup, and India's existence is not dependent on economic growth, because we were strong enough in 1960s, 1970s, even when the economic growth is very small. Now, the only base for China is economy. Okay, now if Chinese growth falls, the entire China might collapse. Okay, because we discussed that there are a lot of internal challenges within China. Okay, like Xinjiang is a challenge, like Tibet is a challenge, like Yunnan is a challenge. There are challenges from Taiwan, Hong Kong, Macau, and challenges from outside like Japan, Russia, or Europe or USA, and India as well. Now, the only way China is treating with all the problems is throwing money. Is it clear? This is what we call it a checkbook diplomacy. Okay, China is doing checkbook diplomacy. That means Xi Jinping goes with a huge checkbook to Nepal, and Nepal government signs a treaty with China. Okay, Xi Jinping gives a huge amount of loan to Sri Lanka. Sri Lankan government gives its port to China. This is what we call it as checkbook diplomacy. That means the only way China is trying to do its diplomacy is because of this. But India is not like that. Okay, a lot of countries are coming closer with India because India is not used to do this. Okay, for a lot of African countries, they look forward for India, not because of this, but because of something more. Okay, that we'll discuss, because India is having a lot cultural connect. India is having a soft power. Okay, but China is not. This is where for China it is an existence issue, but for India it is not. For US it is not. Okay, for Europe it is not, because they are all built on sound foundational principles. But China is not built on sound political system. China is built on economic system. So if economy falls, it is the end of China. Okay, for Pakistan, okay, the only thing which keeps Pakistan together is religion. Okay, that is where they have introduced Allah into everything. Okay, from ISI to army, they introduced religion, because if there is any attack on religion, the whole Pakistan fails. We'll discuss about it. Okay, so it is a survival issue. But for India, it is not like that. Okay, India is not based on religion. India is not just based on economy. Okay, India is based on Indian Constitution. Okay, now the fundamentals of Indian Constitution are strong. The fundamentals of US Constitution are strong. But for China or for Pakistan, it is not like that. They need to depend on these things. Okay, clear? Okay, that's a good question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Any other question? Someone raised hand. Let me know.
Sir, can we say that India failed to recognize the soft power diplomacy in the Southeast Asian regions, while China immensely used its soft power diplomacy to have a robust economic growth, sir?
We cannot say failure. We cannot say failure. We'll discuss in detail when we are talking about Southeast Asia.
Okay,
I'll come to that. Okay, but we cannot completely say it is a failure. Okay, there would be some lacunae, or there could be some areas where we would have done well. Okay, but we cannot say maybe a failure or success. That could be more extreme. So there could be some areas where we have done well. There could be some areas where we haven't done so well. Okay, which we'll discuss in ASEAN. We have a different, separate topic only on cultural relations with ASEAN countries, where we'll focus on that. Okay,
sir, and
yeah,
one more question, sir. European countries don't have any border, many countries don't have any border disputes, but India has many border disputes with all the neighbors. So do you think that colonial rule has a cause for it? Was a cause for the border disputes which India has with its neighborhood?
Yeah, in short, yes. Okay, colonial, you can say most of the border disputes are traced back to the colonial regime. Okay, but again, you cannot blame everything wrong in the country for British rule. Okay, as I told, like There is something like a habit that for everything wrong in the country, you often say that it is because of British rule. Okay, because a lot of countries were under British rule which progressed.
Yes, sir.
Okay, for example, takes case of Singapore.
Yes, sir.
Singapore was also under British rule, but where is Singapore? Where is India?
Yes, sir.
Okay, in the same way, you cannot blame one country for everything wrong. Okay,
Yes, sir.
because we should also be aware that fighting for land is something like an ancient thing.
Yes, sir.
Okay, because maybe during Indus Valley civilization it could be valid, but
Yes,
today land is not something important.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fighting for land is something which led to World War I, which led to World War II. Okay,
Yes,
but what the countries in Europe realized that land is outdated. What is more important is water. What is even more important is air. Even more important is space. Even important today, it is cyberspace. Have you noticed this?
Yes, sir.
So we are moving from conventional domains like land, water, or air to space and cyberspace. So I think the new wars would be more into this one.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but still, like the developing countries are still caught in the age-old land issues.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's all, sir. Thank you, sir.
So again, as I told, like the no discussion is complete until you are able to answer all previous year questions. Okay, so what I have done here is all previous year questions from political science optional. Okay, I know it would be a bit tough. Okay, it would be maybe one step higher, but if you practice at this level, your GS questions would be like a cakewalk for you. Okay, which I would expect you to do that. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just send you all the questions. Maybe how would you get it? Can I just put it in the chat box? I'm not sure. Okay, I'll just send it across the institute. You'll be able to get that. Okay. So I would suggest you to take this note seriously. Okay, and there are like a lot of questions. Okay, and I'll expect that you submit your answers. Okay, again, when you're submitting your answers, not more than half page. Okay, ensure that you are submitting your answers within half page. Okay, don't write slowly. Many of the questions can be repeated. Okay, but just try to understand that whatever the notes you are preparing. Okay, now if you prepare at this level, I think you would be having a lot of content with you. Okay, any questions before we wrap up the call? Okay, all right then. Thank you. Have a nice day ahead. Bye.